Hi, I'm Motaz Baheej Jalili. Today I'm talking about the Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis, ALS. Introduction. ALS is a progressive nervous system disease that affects the nerve cells in the brain spinal cord, causing a loss of the muscle control. ALS is often called the Lou Gehrig's disease after a baseball player who was diagnosed with it. Doctors usually do not know why ALS occurs. Some cases are inherited. ALS often begins with a muscle twitching and weakness in the limb and slurred speech. Eventually, ALS affects control of the muscle need to move and speak, eat, and breathe. There is no cure for the fatal disease. Symptoms. Signs and symptoms of ALS vary greatly from person to person depending on which neurons are affected. It generally begins with a muscle weakness that spreads and gets worse over time. Signs and symptoms may include difficulty walking or doing normal daily activities, tripping and falling, weakness in your leg, feet, and ankle, hand weakness or clumsiness, slurred speech or trouble with swallowing. And other symptoms may be cause muscle cramps and twitching in your arms, shoulders, and tongue. Inappropriate crying, laughing, and yawning. Cognitive and behavioral change. ALS often starts with the hands, feet, or limbs and then spreads to other part of the body. As the disease advances and nerve cells are destroyed, your muscles get weaker. This eventually affects the chewing, swallowing, speaking, and breathing. There is generally no pain in the early stages of ALS, and the pain is uncommon in the later stages. ALS does not usually affect your bladder control or your senses. Causes. ALS affects the nerve cells that control the voluntary muscle movements such as walking and talking, which is the motor neurons. ALS causes the motor neurons to gradually deteriorate, and then die. Motor neurons extend from the brain to the spinal cord to the muscle throughout the body. When motor neurons are damaged, they stop sending the messages to the muscle, so the muscle cannot do any function. ALS is inherited 5 to 10% of people. For the rest of the cause isn't known. Researchers continue to study possible cause of ALS. Most theories center on a complex interaction between genetic and environmental factors. Risk factors. Establish the risk factors of ALS may include heredity. 5 to 10% of people with ALS inherited with a familial ALS. The most people with a familial ALS, their children have 50 to 50 chances of developing the disease. Age. ALS risk increase with the age, and the most common between the 40 to the mid of 60s. Sex. Before the age of 65, slightly more men than women develop ALS. This sex difference disappears after the age of 70. Genetics. Some studies examining the entry of human genome found many similarities to the genetic variation of people with the familial ALS and some people with non-inherited ALS. This genetic variation may make people more susceptible for ALS. Another risk factors, environmental factors such as the following may be triggered with ALS. Smoking. Smoking is the only likely environmental risk factor for ALS. The risk seems to be greatest for women, particularly after the menopause. Environmental toxins exposure. Some evidence suggests the exposure to lead the other substances in workplace or at home might be linked to ALS. Much study has been done, but no single agent or chemical has been consistently associated with ALS. Military service. Studies indicate that people who have served in the military at higher risk of ALS. It's unclear what about the military service might trigger to the development of ALS. It might include the exposure to certain materials or chemicals, traumatic injuries, or viral infection and intoxication. Complication. Breathing problems. Over time, ALS paralyzes the muscle that you use to breathe. You might need to add an advice to help you to breathe at night. A device to help you to breathe at night. To what someone with sleep apnea might wear. For example, maybe given a believable positive airway pressure device that help you to breathing at night. This type of device supports your breathing throughout the mask worn on your nose or your mouth, whatever, or both. Some people with the advanced ALS choose to have the tracheostomy. A surgical created a hole in the front of the neck to the windpipe of trachea for full time of use or respirator that influence and deflates their lungs. The most common cause of death for people with ALS, respiratory failure, on the average, death occurs within 3 to 5 years after symptoms begin. However, some people with ALS live to 10 years or more. Complications. Speaking problems. Most people with ALS develop trouble in the speaking. This usually starts as the mild learning words, but become more severe. Speech eventually become difficult to understand, and the people with ALS often rely on the communication with the technologies to communicate with another people. Eating problems. People with ALS can develop the malnutrition and dehydration from damage to the muscles that control the swallowing, that are also at a higher risk of getting food, liquid, or saliva into the lung, which can cause a pneumonia. Feeding tube can reduce this risk and ensure proper hydration or nutrition. Dementia. Some people with ALS have a problem with the memory and decision making, and some of eventually diagnosed with from dementia called the frontotemporal dementia. Source of the seminar is the My Clinic in British. The end. Thank you.